we take the national anthem. Good morning once again, distinguished shareholders, my colleagues on the board of directors, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to welcome you all to the 27th annual general meeting of our company, Linkage Assurance PLC. I want to thank our shareholders present and those watching us online. We are indeed in very peculiar times. I pray the Almighty God see us through. I want to thank the regulators for providing flexible guidelines for us to hold this meeting. This meeting is being held in line with Corporate Affairs Commission guidelines of holding meetings via proxies, the Protocol on Social Distancing, Lagos State, and the NCDC guidelines on social distancing. The meeting is being streamed live for esteemed shareholders, regulators, and members of the public to observe the proceedings. I hereby call on the registrar to report on the proxy forms received.
Good morning, everybody. We have the proxy voting. The proxy voting shows that we have 250 proxies received. We have the number that voted for resolution 248. Number that voted against the resolution 2. Total shares on proxy 7,328,570,102. Volume that voted for resolution. Okay, just number of proxies. Okay. Okay, the voting period. Thank you. Okay, so number of proxy 250, number that voted 248.
Number of shareholders present and number of proxies. What is the number of shareholders present?
No, they didn't do that. So excuse me.
Number of proxies representing so much shares and the percentage
Number of proxies received 250. Number of percentage proxy that voted for resolution. I'm getting the percentage now.
You don't go for the percentage. Give us
Okay.
Okay, we want.
We need the local to project.
The record I have is not showing me. What is the percentage shareholder present?
By the company secretary that we have a quorum for this meeting in accordance with Article 30 of the company's Articles of Association. I hereby declare this meeting open. As usual, this meeting will be participatory. In order to save time, all the motions on the agenda will be moved by me or at my instance. I will invite seconders from the floor before the motion is put to the meeting and a vote taken. An opportunity will be given for questions on the 2020 financial statements, which I will lay before you in due course, and to which answers will be provided before we proceed to the next item. Audio equipment is in use. I would therefore request that those seconding motions or asking questions do so by speaking clearly into the microphone, which an official will pass to them. They should start their contribution to the proceedings by stating their names to enable the secretary to take proper notes. I would like to recognize the members of the Statutory Audit Committee, representatives of KPMG Professional Services, our independent auditors, DCSL Corporate Services, the Board Appraisal Consultants, National Insurance Commission, Securities and Exchange Commission, Nigeria Stock Exchange, Corporate Affairs Commission. Before we proceed with the issues of the day, I would like to introduce to you members of the Board of Directors of your company. The biographical details of the directors are contained in pages 40 to 42 of the annual report. 3 of us are physically present, while others are joining us virtually. I am Joshua Bernard Fumudok, the chairman of your company.
My name is Daniel Drive, Managing Director.
Okalawan Adelagon, Executive Director, Technical.
Honorable Moses, the company secretary.
Directors joining us virtually are Mr. Olakunle Agbebi, 2, Mr. Tamunoye Alazia, 3, Mr. Bernard Grizzle, 4, Mrs. Funkazi Koroye Crooks, 5, Mr. Maxwell Edibai, and 6, Mr. Shehu Abubakar. I will now call on the company secretary to read the notice convening this meeting.
Good morning, distinguished shareholders. Notice is hereby given that the 27th Annual General Meeting of Linkage Assurance PLC holds on Thursday, 20th May 2021 at IG Recital Hall, Foya, Luson Center, 49 Marina, Onikon, Lagos by 10 a.m. to transact the following business. Ordinary business, to receive and consider the audited financial statement for the year ended 31st December 2020, together with the reports of the directors, auditors, audit committee, and the board appraisal report. 2, to declare dividends. 3, to elect the following directors retiring: Mr. Tamunoye Alazia, Mrs. 4, to ratify the appointment of Messrs. Ernst & Young as external auditors of the company 5, to authorize the directors to fix the remuneration of the auditors. 6, to disclosure of the remuneration of managers of the company. 7, to elect members of the statutory audit team. Special business, to consider and if thought fit to pass the following ordinary resolutions. That the remuneration of the directors of the company for the year ending December 31st, 2021 be and is hereby fixed as 10 million naira only. 2, that in accordance with the recommendation of the directors, the sum of 2 billion naira of the company's retained earning be and hereby capitalized for bonus issues, and the said 2 billion naira divided into 4 billion ordinary shares of 50 kobo each be appropriated to the members whose names appear in the register of members at the close of business on the 30th of April 2021 in proportion of 2 shares for every 5 shares registered in such member's name and on that date, subject to the approval of the appropriate regulatory authorities. The shares so distributed being treated for all purposes as capital and not income, ranking pari passu with the existing shares issued pursuant to this resolution. Proxy. A member of the company is entitled to attend and vote at the annual general meeting can appoint a proxy to attend and vote instead of him or her. In view of the current COVID-19 pandemic, the directives to minimize social contacts by restricting the number of persons at public gathering, and in accordance with the Corporate Affairs Commission's guideline on holding of annual general meeting of public companies by taking advantage of Section 254 of the Company and Allied Matters Act 2020 using proxies, all members are hereby advised that attendance for the meeting shall be by proxy. A member of the company entitled to attend and vote at the meeting is entitled to appoint a proxy to attend and vote in his place. A proxy need not be a member of the company. Consequently, members are required to appoint a proxy of their choice from the list of proposed proxies to represent them at the meeting. Chief Joshua B. Famudo, Chairman Mr. Daniel Braye, MD, and Mr. Moses Omoro, the company secretary. The proxy form is enclosed in the annual report. The Audit Committee.
The independent auditor's report to the shareholders of Linkage Assurance PLC. We have Audit 2011, the Insurance Act 2000.
Report to the Audit Committee, which duly examined the report and being satisfied, rendered the certificate earlier circulated to all shareholders, stated in page 33 of the financial statement. I now call on Mr. Shamsideen O. Balogun, Chairman of the Committee, to present the committee's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. The shareholders, board of directors, and those who are officially with us. I now read the report. It's on the page 33 of the annual report. Report of the Statutory Audit Committee to the members of the Linkage Assurance PLC. In compliance with the provision of Section 404, Subsection 4 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, 2020, we, the members of the Audit Committee of Linkage Assurance PLC, received the audited financial statement for the year ended 31st December 2020, together with the management letter from the external auditors and management responses thereto at a duly convened meeting of the committee, and hereby report as follows. We confirm that, number 1, we have received the scope and planning of the audit for the year ended 31st December 2020. Number 2, we reviewed the external auditor's management letter together with the management responses. And number 3, we asserted that the accounting and reporting policies of the company for the year ended 31st December 2020 are in accordance with legal requirements and agree with the ethical practices. In our opinion, the scope and planning of the audit for the year ended 31st December 2020 were adequate, and management responses to the auditor's findings were satisfactory. We confirm that the internal control system was consistently and effectively monitored through the effective internal audit. The external auditors confirmed that they received full cooperation from the management during the course of the statutory audit. The committee therefore recommends that the audited financial statement for the year ended 31st December 2020 and the auditor's report thereon be presented for adoption by the company at the annual general meeting holding now. Signed by me, Balogun Shamsideen. Other members of the committee are Engineer S.A. Oji, Mrs. Esther O. Oshijo, Mr. Tamunoy Alasia, Mrs. Obafunke Alade Adeyefa, and Mr. Maxwell Ebibai, who are officially seniors now. The secretary of the company acted as the secretary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shamsidin Balogun. This year. DCSL Corporate Services Limited appraised the board and being satisfied rendered the report already circulated in the annual report to the shareholders. I now call upon the representative of DCSL to read their report, which was made available to members with the audited financial statement for the year ended 31st December 2020.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, directors, and distinguished shareholders. I'll be reading our board evaluation report from page 25 of the annual report. DCSL Corporate Services Limited was engaged by Linkage Assurance PLC to carry out a performance evaluation of the board of directors for the year ended December 31st, 2020, in line with the provisions of the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance, National Insurance Commission regulations and Code of Corporate Governance, Securities and Exchange Commission corporate governance guidelines, as well as global best practices on corporate governance. The appraisal entailed a review of the company's corporate and statutory documents, minutes of board and committee meetings, policies and other auxiliary documents made available to us, and the administration of questionnaires to directors. To ascertain the extent of compliance with relevant corporate governance principles and appraise the performance of the board, we benchmark the company's corporate governance structures, policies, and processes against the above-mentioned codes, as well as global best practices, and consider the following 7 key corporate governance themes. 1, board structure and composition. 2, strategy and planning. 3, board operations and effectiveness. 4, measuring and monitoring of performance. 5, risk management and compliance. 6, corporate citizenship. And 7, transparency and disclosure. The board has the responsibility for putting in place adequate corporate governance structures and practices and approving policies that will ensure the company carries on its business in accordance with its memorandum and articles of association, as well as in conformity with applicable laws, codes, and regulations to guarantee sustainability. Upon the conclusion of the performance evaluation of the board, we confirm that the board and company substantially complied with the provisions of the applicable codes. Details of our key findings and recommendations are contained in our detailed report. Yours faithfully signed, BCRDM Managing Director. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DCSL rep.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the opportunity to speak at this AGM. Mr. Chairman, my reasons of attending this AGM, especially since I also have where I have to sit as part of the company, is to pay a very great gratitude to the board and management for promise fulfilled. Part of credibility in insurance company is to make promises and fulfill. This you have done, because I recall last year you told us that the year will produce a better result. And the result we are considering today is far better than what we had the previous years. So I want to thank you on behalf of 22,000 shareholders for fulfilling this promise. Furthermore, I also thank you. I also want to call your attention to page 4, where it states very clearly the values of the company. That has taken away what we used to know. about linkage. And by the grace of God, it's going to be a darling of investors. But I want to refer us to corporate governance, page 30 to 31. Under the corporate governance, there's a director who has not been attending board committee meetings fully. My suggestion there is that he is a very powerful director because he's in the ministry that owns a lot of shares in this company, but he can appoint an alternate who will be helping him to sit at the board than all the absence that we have seen on the board. Mr. Chairman, I want you to guide jealously on page 14 where you give us the outlook for 2021. It is very important that we will be working on that and we'll hold you responsible for anything you have said on that place. And finally, Mr. Chairman, yes, you are paying us dividend. You are declaring dividend. You are paying us 1 week from when this meeting is being held. I mean, for any dividend to be pronounced, the company must be ready to pay out the dividend immediately. So I am appealing to you that we can fast track it. We can bring it downwards and pay us tomorrow or next. There's nothing wrong about it because a provision had been made. Mr. Chairman, before I drop the mic, I want you to look back on the progression on the board there. Just look back. Look back. I don't think there is any human being whose hand is like that, and the skin. We have to improve that so that it will show that we are really talking about human beings. You can see. So it's very, very important. On that note, Mr. Chairman, there is one very important thing that I will not say here. I looked at the management. And something is missing there. Something is missing there. But in my own character, I don't like exposing sensitive things in the open. I'll send in a letter to point out that and mark it confidential so that you will know about that. Thank you very much once again for giving me the opportunity to speak at this meeting. And God continue to bless all of us, board management and staff. And the image, linkage for progression. God bless all of us.
Mr. Chairman and directors of our great company, fellow distinguished shareholder, good morning. My name is Okezia Boniface. Mr. Chairman, we need to commend you for the report we are considering today. This result is also a continuation of a pandemic that the world is not yet get out of it. Despite that, we have produced a good result that gladdened the heart of the shareholders of Linkage. 2 for every 5 is not easy to come by that are given to us in addition of 5 kobo. Mr. Chairman, in the sector to the insurance industry, many have not going to pay, many will not pay. But 5 kobo, it is not where we should be. But we are commending the board that we are getting there. At least by next year, if things continue to progress, as we are already in progressions, maybe next year will be better, we'll pay 10 kobo. From there, we go on until we come back paying 50 kobo, 1 naira. It's achievable, Mr. Chairman, if the economy will support of that. Because the everybody line economy, if the economy is in problem, the company that operating in it will also be in problem. But if the economy is getting better, the company operating in it will get better. That's where we are today. Mr. Chairman, I want to give kudos for every company that have tried to make sure they put food on the table of the investor who invested in them should be commended, because it's not easy. We have seen it, we are all witness, we are all living in Nigeria, that things is not working well with us. If the economy at the center is not performing, so it will also, bottle to the branches, including the state, local government, including the company operation is. So every company that does well and able to pay something, no matter how small, should be commended. And the staff should be also applauded because you have done very well in the midst of uncertainties, and we are going home with 5 kobo. Even if you translate dividend today, I mean the bonus, even at 67 kobo or thereabout, it's another money plus. Mr. Chairman, you have done very, very well, and the MD should be commended. But that does not mean you should relax, because much needs to be done. Mr. Chairman, we talked about last year about recapitalization. You didn't tell us here in your statement whether we have met that criteria, whether there's no money going to be raised further in terms of recapitalization to deny competing the deadline, even though they have given some grace for companies to, make sure they are there without being, persuaded by the NICOM to meet that deadline. How far have we gone? Are we not there in terms of recapitalization? Have we met the deadline? Is the money in there? And if it's not there, what are the plans to make sure we recapitalize before the deadline set out? Because we don't want to take unaware on these regulators, what they are doing today. Thank God we didn't have any penalty to pay and going to Nikon Insurance. I must applaud the management for doing that. Because when they come, they take money where they did not work for, even when we are paying them supervising fees, running to millions of naira, and they're doing nothing. And that's why they lavishly, the MDAs today were indicted by the Senate, not even giving account of money they have received. These are things they take from the company, they don't even disclose, they don't even return in terms of returning to the government. And this they hold back, but everything they take from the company. Because if the regulators will allow the company to survive, it will be better for investors. The problem we're having today is you have an industry that's over-regulated. They regulate everything that is even not regulated. Even when you're having problem, they don't find solution. How you wrangle out of that problem. They make sure that they snip you down. They take from you, they make you dry. That's the regulator we're having today. Mr. Chairman, you need to tell us. But I also want to sound a note of warning. We have getting dividend from most of the investments we made. IBT's pension fund, that is our lifeline. And I make sure that those companies are there, that we don't sell any of them in the name of recapitalization. Because with having this company, the dividend are sure every year. That is investments you made, not even the premium. The investments you made are one giving all this dividend. We want to applaud the management with that, I think that's the key investments you have here today. And I want to also make sure that that company will remain, that investment will remain there, so that whatever we get there, we help to augment the dividend we're getting out from the company. On page 110, Mr. Chairman, I think that should be my last, so that we have to also pay dues elsewhere. I don't want to get the time, because if the company have done well, we don't want to take their time if you have done well. Mr. Chairman, on page 110, that talks about operating expenses, maintenance expenses, and management expenses. Yeah, it have shot up against previous years. Maybe because the premium also grew, and the expenses have also be growing. We'll have about 2.89 billion in 2020 management expenses, as against 1.7. And the maintenance will have 1.2 billion as against 882 million in the previous years. So, Mr. Chairman, I also applaud the auditors. Today we're having incoming auditors. Our KPMG have always been magnanimous in terms of fee they take. And I hope the incoming auditor will not increase unnecessarily. I want to commend KPMG for being there for us. They don't increase arbitrarily, as we are seeing other auditors of the company. I want to commend them for the service rendered, even that we are proving another auditor today. Maybe their tenure have also ended, that we are doing away with them. I want to commend them for the good work they have done. They've always been there for shareholders. Mr. Chairman, I also want to commend also on insurance expenses is getting higher every day. Supervisory fee is getting higher. We need to watch that. 104 as against 92 we paid previous years. Mr. Chairman, we need to watch that. Because this, I don't know what they're supervising for. Taking away the whole lot of money. If this money are there, we are going to get 50 kobo dividend, 20 kobo. So we are paying a lot to regulators. And at the end, this government agency does not disclose what they earn. That's a problem. It becomes a problem. If this money goes to the center and the government uses to do something, provide infrastructure, somebody will applaud them. But today, they change. All of them are done business machines. That's what they are doing. Instead of doing the job, they are now regulatory, bringing money, business center, business this, development in the regulatory people, Mr. Chairman, it becomes a problem. I pray that this company will survive the regulatory activities of our so-called regulators. Nobody regulates them. That's the problem. A challenge in the industry we are witnessing today. So if any company comes out and pay dividend, Mr. Chairman, we need to commend them. It is not easy what they go through. It is not an easy job. It is not an easy job. But I want to say once again, MD, keep it up. Next year shall be better by God's grace. Thank you. And the company secretary, I want to commend him. The way he has been able to carry shareholders along. Because without him today, most of us that represent 22,000 shareholders, according to guidelines of this pandemic, will be jam-packed here. But I believe for counting us worth to be here to represent others, it is not by our own making. But the wisdom of the company and the board for us to be, I want to commend Moses. The way he has been going since assumed office is very, very commendable in terms of information. When they called him, he responded. He's a good servant, and I want to commend him. That the good Lord is going to keep him and bless him. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The chairman, board members are present physically and those watching virtually, regulatory authorities, my colleague shareholders, good morning. My name is Matthew Akinade, the president of Noble Shareholders Welfare Association. I want to appreciate you inviting me to be at this AGM out of about 22,000 shareholders. I count it as a privilege and honor. Thank you for that. For Linkage, honestly, we have come to celebrate the company. Good performance. So, if we look at, I use the soft copy. Paging is different from the annual report we have because I have this annual report here this morning. On page 3 of that soft copy, if you look at financial indices there, everything is positive. I have reviewed a number of insurance companies' annual report this year. Honestly, Linkage Assurance is on top. And I want us to give them a round of applause for the excellent performance. One other thing I want to mention specifically is the fact that insurance company, where they're supposed to make money, is on investment. And we have done excellently well here. I look at the portfolio of our investments. They are with companies with strong fundamentals that come rain or sun, they will be there. So I want to commend the Finance, Investment, and General Purpose Committee. I believe we have the right people in that committee who are making the right decision that is profitable for the company. And I want to commend the Chief Executive Officer presiding over the management of the company, as well as the board. Honestly, you have done well. And let's keep it up. Let's continue to aim higher and higher. And I pray that our company will continue to do well. One thing other people have talked about is on recapitalization. When I saw what you are giving to the shareholders, 2 million naira for bonus and 500, 2 billion for bonus and 500 million for dividend. That's about 2.5 billion, when the profits really is 2.4 billion. It means, one, you are investor friendly, you are giving return to investors, which is a good one. Second, I commend your foresight in not paying huge dividend this year, more so when you are faced with the capitalization and you have compensated with bonus, which is laudable. I'm aware that NICOM has suspended the timeline of December 31st that they first had for recapitalization because of court cases. I learned there were 3 court cases. I also learned of recent that there have been judgments in 2 of the 3 cases, and the judgments were in favor of NICOM. So if we are going to go by law of probability, the 3rd case may be in their favor. So we should not rest on our oars. Whatever remains for us to meet up with the regulatory requirements in terms of capitalization, we should accelerate the process. Because the way I look at it is that the suspension of the project will not be indefinite. Again, I saw your CSR program and what you donated to support government on COVID-19, 20 billion. I want to appreciate the company for doing that much. Somebody has talked about attendance of a director at meetings. In fact, when I look at the director's attendance at audit committee meetings, just 1 out of 4 is not a good performance. If the person is busy, like Sasane was suggested, he can appoint a proxy to attend in his place. Then when I look at the further on the attendance of the audit committee, I look at Ms. Osijo attended 1 meeting and she was marked absent for others. I think she's not absent. If she was only appointed, elected to the committee on August 13 last year, and the 3 other meetings have been held before she was appointed, I think it's an error. She should not be marked X. She should have been marked NA, not applicable for those 3 meetings. Because anybody just looking at that will say, she's not doing well. She's not attending meeting. Whereas she attended only 1 meeting that was held after appointment. Another thing I want to commend the company for is on your retail products. You have done things that are highly innovative and probably the first in the industry. That is the introduction of motor vehicle third-party policy that also protect policyholder up to 250,000 naira. I think I've never had it elsewhere. This is remarkable. Let's continue to think innovatively. And at the end of the day, it will yield bountifully for us. Because somebody that knows that he himself can get 250,000. Me, I would like to go to that kind of company. That means more premium for you and more profit. The same thing what you did on the linkage SME comprehensive citadel shield that provide for compensation for accident of pupils and students. All these are groundbreaking, and we should continue that. I also look at the liquidity of the company. Looking at the cash flow, it's also commendable. Right. It's also commendable. You know, the net cash inflow is 2 billion, which is good, which has taken us from 1.6 billion we were last year to 3.6 billion at the end of 2020. It's quite good. Few things I would want us to take note. Somebody have talked about operating expenses or admin expenses, but I look at some specific items that probably we want to speak to, how we came to the high figures. On note 42 on page 84 of the soft copy, it may not be there it may be a different page on the copies we have, but note 42, which will be the same. Corporate expenses from 342 million in 2019 went up to 651 million. That's huge. We want to speak to that. Legal and secretariat from 38 million went up to 152 million. Is that so big? And consultancy fee from 78 million to 160 million. That's outrightly doubled. So we want to look at that and speak to that. And I look at withholding tax VAT 41.8 billion to 84.5 billion. I don't know. Do we have a backlog that we have to pay? Because if you just look at the business of the year, I know it's an expense that you don't have control about in terms of VAT withholding tax. But do we have a backlog? Because if you look at your business in the course of the year, it's not doubled. So we want to speak to that. And I want to commend you. It's unique that the company paid no penalty for contravention. It's unique. You have done well, and I praise you. Please, let's keep it up. I want to mention specifically our company secretary. I think you have made the right choice because he's doing great work. He's approachable, and it's not one of those company secretaries that we call and will not be called, and will not have courtesy of calling back at some other time. So, Moses, well done. Please continue to do well. Before I sit down, I want to thank our outgoing auditors, KPMG. Wherever they are, they have been excellent performers. I've encountered KPMG in a number of places, and their service is excellent. And I think that that you are living here now is not because of performance, it's because you have served your time. I can assure you, wherever you are, shareholders will continue to support you. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kinlade.
Good morning, Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the regulator authority present, and the shareholder present, those people watching online. So, I thank you for the privilege given to me. Sir, when I took this annual report, it's me looking at it shows me that the board has worked. They've tried and worked very hard because it shows bigger, bolder, and better. For a company to be bigger and better, it has taken a long process, long time to make ends meet. So thank you for giving us this small dividend. It's not even small, plus the bonus. Because when you value the bonus and the dividend, at least it's helped a family. It's helped our investment as well. Thank you, sir. In page 4, you've blown the whistle for the shareholder to know that we should buy more of these shares. Page 6, this annual report, wherever we pick it, it has shown us what you are into, what you are dealing with. Even if I want to recommend a company outside, there is no need to make an advertisement much. They've stated it there. I want to be brief so that I'll give chance for others to speak. Page 7, sir. We are using this medium. Shareholders are using this medium to thank the board, the management, and the staff that baked this cake for us to take. Page 17. This goes to the chairman and the MD. The states that brief, well done. And, I'm coming, sir. Happen. The page 17, it has shown what you have supervised, what MD have supervised for the period of 2020. And it has stated in page 20, MD, you have tried, thank you. And as you will reap the fruit of your labor, shareholder too will reap, because a MD that work harder and provide food for shareholder to have something when we are on our retirement age is not easy. Page 22, note 17. Note 17 stated, note 17 stated the bonus and the dividend, and it shows clearly. It's very, very explanatory on what is happening in our company. May the good luck bless you and bless the company. The company secretary is a medium between directors, board, and the shareholder. And whenever we call him to ask what is going on in our company, is there for us to explain or tell us wherever the company or what we need to know about the company. So we thank the board for giving him that chance, for empowering him to relate with shareholder. May the good Lord bless the company secretary and the board.
Norman.
The chairman. other members of the board, including those of them who are watching us by video, very distinguished fellow shareholders. For the records, my names are Nona Ao. Unfortunately, the quarrel that you had with the account had to do with the cover page. I want to look at the cover page from a very different position, because progression itself cannot be taken in isolation of the pattern change. So, Chairman, are you stepping aside, or why is the pattern changing? But talking seriously to the accounts, I think the main issue that needs to be addressed today is basically give us an update about recapitalization. Every other thing will be, any other thing will be a bonus. So take time to explain to us where we are and where we are hoping to be with or without NICOM deadline. Because that itself will give an additional confidence to investors as far as the company is concerned. So take your time, and fortunately for us, more people will even follow us, given that this AGM is being streamlined. But having said that, Mr. Chairman, I want to join in saying that going forward, which is probably where the progression will be coming from my own end. On page 9, yes, you have the registrar's address there, but that address will not be complete if you don't have a phone number. Because one of the challenge with unclaimed dividends still remains the ability of a number of shareholders to be able to get across to the registrar. So going forward, that should be one of the things that should be on our annual account. Still talking about progression, Mr. Chairman. The new regulation demands that we have 3 independent directors. Though unfortunately for us, majority of the shareholder or directors don't have shares in their name. But I was expecting that that is again one of the issues that you'll be talking to us about. So we don't begin to run when it's 2 days to deadline. So what is it that we are doing about independent directors? I'm not just saying bringing anybody on board, because the place you are in now, again, using your own position, you're talking about pattern change. We must begin to bring in additional person on the board who are of quality, not just bring anybody because you want to do geographical spread. No. There has to be people who will bring value. Because again, as independent directors, shareholding is not a condition for appointments. So it's something that you must begin to look at, and look at very critically. But I want to also remind you, there was a promise around the issue of minority representation on the board. And I don't think that that issue has been put to rest yet, because the promise that was made is yet to be fulfilled. Mr. Chairman, I also think that, still talking about progress and progression, we still have our money with a government agency post a fundraising. And I don't think it's something that we should skip. It should constantly be on an annual in our annual account. That way, all of us are constantly reminded that our money is still somewhere. If we have the money, that number of years, I'm sure we will not be talking about what we are talking now. And those shares are being serviced, and yet the money that the shareholders brought to the company has not reached the company. So what is the update? Because one of the things that some of us were expecting, yes, I know we went to court, but if it's a deposit, NDIC is empowered to pay all deposits in full. Why are we not being paid in full? And what is the situation, like I said, as far as the court case is concerned? It is something, MD, that must be in our account year in, year out until that issue is resolved. Because if you're not careful, that goes outside the radar and it can be a challenge for everybody. Mr. Chairman, I want to also say that going forward, our CSR needs to be better defined. Because looking at the donation that we made this year, they are all government-induced. But I also say that globally, government is not usually the best of, does not have the best of ideas. So let's sit down and say, going forward, this is going to be our core area of corporate social responsibility. So even when government comes, this is what we have. How do you fall in? Rather than government telling us, go and fall into the lagoon. Meanwhile, we are not good swimmers. Other than the chairman, but I even know that given the age of the chairman now, if we throw you inside water, you probably will need a life jacket as well. So don't let government direct what we do. Let us provide platform for government to fall in should other situations like this come on board. On the final note, Mr. Chairman, closing on progression, and I'll be seeking your permission to speak straight to the Managing Director and his team. 2021 result is one in which, for us to come in here and say you have done well, must be one in which the profit after tax must be not less than 2 times the investment income. Which means that you must work so hard that the underwriting profit must be positive for us to be able to have that. Yes, I know that one of the things that you say is, it will be challenging, but I've also noted in 2020 that there was an improvement in staff remuneration, which is welcome. And usually when you pay people more, what you expect them to do is to also work harder. So on that note, Mr. Chairman, I want to commend the board for the effort in 2020. But I also want to say that we still have plenty of room for improvement, given our catchment area and then giving our area of competence. Other than fire, that for the second consecutive years has thrown in negative underwriting profit, I think that other areas as well can be worked on, so at the benefit that will come next year. Having given 2 for 5 this year, again will not be anything less than the 5 cover that you are giving this year. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah. Chairman, regulators, shareholders. Alison Amakri, representing Ministry of Finance Incorporated, Bayelsa State. Today we are talking about, much of the things have been spoken on the accounts, so I will not go into the accounts. And kudos have been given to management, the directors. But what I want to now say is, we've been hearing of regulators and capital recapitalization. And now we've been laid on our hands to vote for dividend and bonus. I want Chairman to speak into it. If by voting for this, if it will reduce or it mean that tomorrow we will be required to cough out some money again to come and recapitalize, please inform us before we now go into that decision, so that we will not give to us, then later ask again for us to cough out something to come and give through for recapitalization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our shareholders that have spoken. I will take the issue of the independent directors, the funds tied up at NDIC, and then the MD will take the other issues. First and foremost, let me thank all our shareholders who have given us kudos, commendations, who have thanked us for our performance in 2020. Year 2020 was a particularly difficult year, very, very difficult, because from about March, when the lockdown was introduced, it was there for about 5-6 months, and we had to design new methods of working and reaching our constituency. It was particularly difficult, but at the end of the day, we thank God that we had a very good result, because we had staff that were dedicated, who worked day and night from their homes, because the new normal became working from home. And the team was led by the MD, who did everything to ensure that the staff were able to do their work, were able to perform, leading to all the results we had, and then all these thanks, commendation we have received from you. We are very, very grateful to you, because if not for your support, your total support as well, we may not perform as we have done. So thank you very much indeed. On the recapitalization, that is very, very key to us, because that in fact determines our life, whether we'll be in business again or not. And we know the importance of that. And we are taking all steps to ensure that whenever it's time that NICOM comes out, we are just able to make it. And on that score is even the reason for recapitalizing 2 billion, because that brings our capital today to 7 billion. So instead of looking for 5 billion, we are today talking of 3. That is easier for us. And with all the efforts that we are making now on our business and the results we are expecting in 2021, it may just be unnecessary to look for other investors. We are very confident of that. We made a promise to you last year, we delivered. We are also promising now that on recapitalization, surely we shall deliver. I don't think anyone should. Yes, the Bayelsa man doesn't know that life is give and take. Because you give and you take. So if you give you now, then we take it back. It's part of life. So Norman, Mr. Okezi, and Mr. Akinlade, we thank you very much for thinking that we deserve all the praise that you showered on us. Thank you very much. I'm assuring you to maturity. So we give you the assurance that God willing, this time next year, we have good news for you. On the other items, I hand over to the MD to talk about that.
The chairman, our distinguished shareholders, members of the press, our external auditors, our regulators, and the registrars. I will attempt to answer the questions that have been raised by our distinguished shareholders. The first was Sir Sonny Wosu He talked about corporate governance in terms of attendance of committee meetings and board meetings. What I want to say is that that has been noted, and hopefully it will be corrected moving forward. He also raised the issue of fast-tracking dividend payment. I want to give assurance that already that dividend has been transferred to the registrars, so I believe they are also here, so I'm going to appeal to them to see how they can quickly pay shareholders. He talked about, well, jokingly about the banner. We've noted that. We will improve on it. Then he also talked about an issue, something that is missing, but that he's going to do a letter specifically on that. So I think those were the issues Sam also raised. Then to our director, to our shareholder, Boniface Okezie, he talked about coming here to pay more dividend. We have noted that we will work as a management and a board to ensure that we continue to deliver. He also talked about recapitalization, but I think Chairman just mentioned about recapitalization and gave the assurance that just like he promised last year that we will deliver, that one too we will deliver. So I'm also echoing that assurance. He also talked about our investment in Stanbic IBTC pension managers, and that I hope in the process of this recapitalization, we're not going to tamper with those funds. I'd like to give the assurance that there will be nothing of such. He talked about operating expenses in terms of the rise in operational expenses. Yes, that one we will attribute to the fact that we were trying to take a lead in some major accounts, especially the oil and gas accounts. We were just followers with little proportion, and we thought that we should also play big on that particular class of business. So definitely it involved a lot of expenses. And then of course he also talked of reinsurance. Yes, when you assume so many risks, you need to also reinsure to be able to protect yourselves. And so a lot of reinsurance expenses also came as a result of the increase in gross premium written. And then he also talked of management expenses. Yes, management expenses as a result of underwriting, as a result of increase in the GPW, that is gross premium written, expenses also rose, and also the reason I gave earlier that oil and gas businesses also attract a lot of expense. But as a management, we are constantly looking at our expenses so that we can bring them within, a limit that we know will not impact too seriously on our business. It's a rework, and we are constantly working on that. In terms of auditors' fees, he talked about hoping that with these new auditors, the fees will not be expensive. I can assure him that it will not be expensive. The fees are reasonable. Then I now go to our distinguished shareholder, Matthew Akinlade. He talked about a lot of, there was a lot of commendation. I think those were the things that I noted. He also spoke about recapitalization, which has been addressed. The corporate social responsibility program, particularly for the one that we did as a result of industry support for the COVID-19 pandemic, I'd like to assure shareholders that that particular amount of 20 million is tax exempt. The authorities give us exemption for that. So one way or the other, we are benefiting from the other side. Then he also mentioned about directors' attendance. I think that has been addressed. We also, his comment regarding Mrs. Osijo, we have noted that for the future. He talked about our retail products commendation. Yes, Third Party Plus is a product that was designed by Linkage, which was a first for us in the industry. And it was a bridge between the third party and the comprehensive policy, and other retail products as well. He commended our liquidity, also mentioned the operating expenses, which I had earlier spoke about, commended us about penalties, thanked the outgoing auditors. We, as a board and management, and the company in general also appreciate the good working relationship we had with KPMG. And like he said, it is not because of any reason, it's just that they have finished their term. And by law, they must take their exit. Otherwise, we would have loved for them to continue. Thank you for those comments. Then Mrs. Obadei, she talked about, Mrs. Obidei. She talked about our CSR activities, commended the company for the dividend and the bonus issued. I think those were generally, and then for being explicit in our annual accounts for our products and other items. Then to our distinguished shareholder, Mr. Nona Awo, he said he particularly is interested in the recapitalization update, which the chairman has spoken to. And then we have noted his comment regarding difficulties in reaching out to registrars, and therefore the phone numbers moving forward will be included in the notice. On the issue of Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance on 3 independent directors, I'd like to assure him that the board and management is looking at that seriously to ensure that we're on the right side of the law. We don't want to be caught napping. And then he also talked about the outstanding issue of a representative of the minority shareholders. Yes, we did promise last time that that issue is still being discussed, but we are sorry that no resolution was taken. No, it was not resolved before this time, but I can assure him that before the next AGM, all those issues will be resolved. The chairman has spoken about the trapped funds in NDIC, so I'm going to skip that. He talked about defining our CSR activities. I want to say that it's not as if we were being forced by government to, yes, apart from the donation we made to federal government on the COVID pandemic, that one was even an industry initiative, to support the government. It's not as if we were forced to do it. And other ones as well. It just as they came, and we thought that we needed to support. But we have noted his comments that we should clearly define our CSR activities. And moving forward, we will do that. He talked about progression, that management should work hard to ensure that profit after tax is 2 times investment income. And to that extent, I can assure him that we are already doing that, because we are constantly reviewing our operations to ensure that we report a higher underwriting profit. And part of what we are doing is that we are looking at even those businesses that are toxic and trying to say, no, we are not going into this class of business or this type of risk. We are not taking it again. Even those that we are doing already, when they are due for renewal, we say, no, because of the nature of this business, we don't want to participate. And there are a lot of them like that. So I believe with those kind of actions, it will improve our underwriting profit. He also talked about plenty of room for improvement. Yes, we agree that as a management that we are still work in progress, let me put it that way. We are not where we are supposed to be. And that is very constant for us, so we are working on that. He mentioned the losses in fire and aviation. I've said that earlier. Some of those risks that are bringing losses to us, we are looking at them. And then those ones where we are doing okay, like the motor class, we are also trying to expand our reach so that we can do more of those businesses. The aviation one, I'm sure we all know that helicopter that crashed at Okwebi. We insured that helicopter 100%, and I can assure you that we have paid for the hull. We are out of the 3 liability claims, that is the passengers, we paid 1, remaining 2. But as soon as the documentations are complete, we will pay those claims. But the assurance I'm also giving is that we had good reinsurance, so we are going to recover from our reinsurers. And that is why when I said earlier that expenses increase as a result of reinsurance, those are the kind of benefits that we get at the end of the day. Then to the last speaker, Mr. Alison Namakri, he also talked about recapitalization. I want to believe the chairman's explanation on the recapitalization should have satisfactorily answered his inquiries. Thank you very much.
I hereby move that the audited financial statements for the period ended 31st December 2020, together with the director's auditor, board appraisers, and the audit committee reports thereon be received and adopted. Would someone please rise and second the motion? Okay. Is there nobody? Okay. We move to the declaration of dividend. The next item is on the declaration of dividend. I hereby move that the dividend of 5 kobo per share on the issued share capital, subject to the appropriate withholding tax, be paid to shareholders whose names are cleared on the register of shareholders at the close of business on Friday, 30th of April 2021. Would someone please rise and move second the motion?
I so do, Mr. Chairman. My name is Elizabeth Begbaji.
Okay. I now call on the registrar to announce the results of the voting on this motion based on the proxy forms received.
Mr. Chairman and Board of Directors, I kindly apologize for the earlier mix-up. We have present today 10 shareholders who have a total of 628,188. By proxy, we have 7,328,570,120 as shares. And of course, after the voting against the share capital of the company, we have 73.3% voting for this, for the payment of dividend, which means the vote is carried.
I hereby declare that the motion has been carried unanimously. We go to the next item, is the re-election of directors who are retiring. But there's a slight adjustment to that. two of the directors have left the board. So we are presenting two directors, Mr. Tamunai Alazia and Mr. Lakunle Agbebi. Since the directors were voted separately in the proxy forms submitted, I would like to take the motion for each director separately. I hereby move that Mr. Tamunai Alazia be and hereby elected as non-executive director.
Chairman, it may be necessary for you to further educate the other shareholders, because I'm sure the board will know why the two other ladies are stepping aside now. Because if you look at the tenor that you displayed on one of the pages, they haven't spent anything close to the mandatory. So I would just appeal that you give us additional information so we can also understand it. Especially that the two persons that I also mentioned happen to be ladies. So we are gender sensitive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
These are, to your question, the fact that they are ladies is just a mere coincidence. It has nothing to do. The main issue is that their first term have expired and they've left the board. Okay. Would someone please rise and second motion for Tamunai Alazia?
I, Engineer Billy, shall have a second motion.
Okay. I now call on the registrar to announce the results of the voting on this motion based on the proxy forms.
Based on the proxy forms, we have 7,329,191,805 voting for the election, and of course, that amounted to 73.3% of the total share capital. Thank you.
I hereby declare the motion carried unanimously. I hereby move that Mr. Lakunle Agbebi be and hereby re-elected as non-executive director. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
I, Mrs. Obide, rise to second the motion.
Thank you. I now call on the registrar to announce the results of the voting on this motion based on the proxy forms received.
Based on the proxy forms received, we also have positive voting as 7,329,191,305, representing 73.3% of the total share capital. So the votes were carried.
I hereby declare the motion carried unanimously. We move on to the appointment of external auditors. And here, I must really thank KPMG for their services to Linkage Assurance these past years. Well, I don't want to say that are we going to get any better service than them? It's a question. But then they've come to the limit of their tenure with us ago. But then we've had very good recommendations about Ernst & Young. And the taste of the pudding is in the eating, so we wait and see. I hereby move that Ernst & Young be and hereby as the external. Seconder, please.
Okay. I, Engineer Bilio Sharafa, second the motion.
Call on the registrar to announce the results of the voting.
Based on the proxies received, we have 7329191,805 voting in favor of the appointment of Ernst & Young as the new external auditors. There is no votes against.
I hereby declare that the motion has been carried unanimously. I hereby move that the directors be and are hereby authorized to fix the remuneration and expenses of the auditors for the year ending 31st December 2021. I now call on the registrar. Someone has to move now. Okay, I hereby move. We need a let somebody else.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I so move. My name is Elizabeth Begbanje.
Thank you very much. I now call on the registrar to announce the results of the voting.
By the proxies we received for this, we have 7329191,305 voting in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
I hereby declare that the motion has been carried unanimously. Disclosure of remuneration of managers of the company. The remuneration of managers of the company is disclosed in note 42 at page 110 of the 2020 annual report. Election of the statutory audit committee. The next item is on the election of members of the statutory audit committee. In accordance with section 4046 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2004, we have received the names of the shareholders' nominees for election into the statutory audit committee. The shareholders currently on the statutory audit committee shall also be subjected to re-election annually. I now call on the Secretary to read the names of current shareholders on the statutory audit committee, together with those of the new nominees that were received before the close of that nomination within the statutory time.
Distinguished shareholders, good morning once again. At the close of nomination, received 51 nominees, and with the kind permission of the shareholders, I wouldn't want to start reading out all those names. But the good news is that before this meeting, out of the 51, 48 has withdrawn, 48 has withdrawn. So we are left with only 3 persons, and fortunately the 3 persons are the same 3 persons the people that are already on the board. Mrs. Osijo Esther, Mr. Balogu Samson Olalikon, Mr. Sunday Oji, Ajubike Oji, they are the existing members, and with the withdrawal of the rest persons, they are duly returned as shareholders, members of the committee, audit committee. Thank you.
Having been nominated unopposed, I hereby declare Mr. Samsidin Balogun, 2, Mr. Sunday Oji, and 3, Mrs. Esther Oshijo, as duly elected members of the Statutory Audit Committee pursuant to Section 404(6) of the Companies and Allied Matters Act until the conclusion of the next annual general meeting. Special business, remuneration of directors. I hereby move that the remuneration of the directors of the company for the next year ending December 31, 2021 be and is hereby fixed at 10 million naira only. Would someone please rise and second this motion?
I, Mrs. Obide, I rise to second the motion.
I now call on the registrar to announce the results of the voting on this motion based on the proxy forms received.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the proxies received on this voting, we have 7,329,191,805 shares voting in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
I hereby declare that the motion has been carried unanimously.
Our audit committee member, since we've approved them, nobody seconds the motion.
No, we did. We did. Ms. Obide, Ms. Obide.
Okay. I, Mrs. C.O. Obide, I second the audit committee member.
Yeah, we get to the last item, approval of bonus issue. I hereby move that in accordance with the recommendation of the directors, the sum of 2 billion naira of the company's general reserves account be and hereby capitalized for bonus issue, and the said 2 billion naira divided into 4 billion ordinary shares of 50 kobo each be appropriated to members whose names appear in the register of members at the close of business on Friday, 30th April 2021, in the proportion of 2 shares for every 5 shares registered in such member's name on that date, subject to the approval of the appropriate regulatory authorities. The shares so distributed being treated for all purposes as capital and not income, ranking pari passu with the existing shares issued pursuant to this resolution. Would someone please rise and second this motion? No.
Chairman, Alison Amakri, second the motion.
Thank you very much. I think you are listening, Amakri. You are listening very well. Okay. Thank you. Distinguished fellow.
Based on the...
Oh, I've not done this. I now call on the registrar to announce the results of the voting on this motion based on the proxy forms received.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the proxy forms received, shareholders gladly voted in favor of this motion in the proportion of 7,329,191,805 against the share capital of the company. Thank you, sir.
I hereby declare that the motion has been carried unanimously. Then we get to the closing point.
The good thing is that under the new rules concerning directors' emolument, you're expected to just disclose. But what was mentioned in the agenda may not be correct. Because what is said here is that the remuneration of directors. But if you go to page 111, remuneration of directors, even in 2020, was 89 million. So I want to think that rather than say remuneration, what you probably were intended to say there should have been fees. Because if it's directors' fees, then that may be within the region of 10 million. But if it's remuneration, it's certainly in excess of 10 million. I just want that clarification so that we don't. Thank you.
Oh. It is actually the director's fees, and we'll make the necessary correction. Thank you very much. Distinguished fellow shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you very much on behalf of the Board of Directors for your time and contributions. Thank you very much indeed. National Anthem. Thank you very much indeed.